Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation?
Yeah.
And you talked about that leap of faith. What advice or thoughts do you have around people who are listening and they need to have that leap of faith that they've contemplated, they've been in pre-contemplation, they're a decision away from action? Because one of the things that I fear the most is that, another person in a relationship or another child comes and exists in the childhood like I had, where it's hyper volatile and incredibly dangerous and you get hospitalized and all those. And I think to myself, like, if I were to give someone a piece of advice here, what would it be? What is something that you believe can help somebody take that leap?
Mhm. My best advice for that would be to realize that you have people that will help you. We feel isolated usually. I felt so isolated, like I couldn't trust anybody, and you have to trust that somebody is going to be there for you. And especially when you're not in a physically abusive relationship, like nobody knew what I was going through. And I had to reach out to people and tell them what was going on. We try to keep it a secret, we feel ashamed, we feel guilt, and narcissists especially are really good at making you feel that way. Like you have to trust in the people that you used to trust in, so family and friends. I would say that would be my best advice is you have to be vulnerable and you have to, which is so hard to do because a narcissist takes your vulnerability and they just brutalize you with it, like just use it against you in every way. And you have to remember back, maybe remember back before you were in that relationship, like who were your go-to people back then? Because now you're not the same person you were back then, but you want to, those are the people who are going to be there for you now. So that would be my best advice is think about, who were my go-to people before this happened and can I go to them now? I have to put myself out there to get out of this situation that I'm in right now because otherwise it's never going to change.
And I'll have to say this, that the people around you will help you. And I think that a lot of people fear that they won't. Again, to your point about being in isolation, is
Mhm.
people think, well, nobody's going to be able to help me. They don't get it. They don't understand. And I'm like, people get it. Like, the one truth I know, probably more so about the human experience than anything, is that the people around you want to help you. They want to see
Right.
you succeed. They want to get you out of these kind of experiences. And a lot of times they'll give you a couch or money or a car or whatever it
Yeah.
is to help you get out of that. Because innately I do, and inherently I do believe that people are good. Just unfortunately sometimes there's extreme extreme circumstances that we get in.
Right.
So you're in this moment, you're in the U-Haul, you call your friend. What's next? Because I think this is kind of the pendulum swing, right?
It really was. It was That was I would say that I wouldn't say that was the hardest day of my life, though, honestly. There was a moment probably 9 months before that where I suddenly realized that he's never gonna change, and that was my lowest point, and it was, like, 3 months after we got married. I realized he was never gonna change, but in that moment, the moving out moment, honestly, I can't remember much from that day. I was in such just shock, disbelief. I was you're almost it's almost like an external body experience, right? Like I'm just going through the motions. I get the U-Haul to the house. He knows I'm moving out. He keeps every room that we're in, he keeps coming into that room and just standing in the doorway. Just standing there watching me. And I had to take boxes and just start in one corner of each room and just go around and start throwing stuff in boxes. And I was so detached from all of that. Just there was no emotion. There were no emotions that day. I was very task oriented. I have to get these things done. And by the end of the day, my body was exhausted and my mind was numb and I just collapsed into at my new house. I just collapsed and just cried for probably 6 hours, honestly. And my phone was blowing up, right? Because the whole time I'm moving out, he's texting and calling everybody I know. My family, my friends, he's calling everybody I know to tell them that I'm leaving him and he doesn't know why. So not only am I trying to get through the day and get my stuff done and moved, my daughter's there with her boyfriend trying to get their stuff done. My phone is blowing up with family and friends. He's hovering over me. Like, this whole day is just is so exhausting. And the next day was so exhausting. I couldn't even start unpacking. I just laid in bed most of the day.
You know what came to mind is I feel like, and I don't know, I wasn't there, so this is why I'm asking you the question. This must have been to some extent a sense of relief. And if it was, where does the healing journey start in this?
The day after was a bit of a relief, and then so I moved out on a Friday. Saturday was a bit of a relief, I kind of relaxed and, just like I said, stayed in bed and thought about what I was going to do next. I was starting a new job on Monday because when I moved out, I didn't have a job. We owned a business together, and he was keeping the business, and I had to go get a job. And then Sunday rolls around, and I start unpacking things and feeling really good and all excited for my job the next day. And it was probably 4 or 5 days after I actually moved out that I thought, "Holy shit, what did I just do? How am I ever gonna survive without him? And how am I gonna do this?" I was trying to think of, the reality of it, and I wasn't making very much money. I didn't know how I was gonna afford rent, like, I was good for 1 month, but what happens when bills come due next month? And so I started to miss him. I started to question my decision. And now, he's contacting me. He wants to know if what he did wrong, what he can do to make it right. He's doing the whole love bombing thing, trying to get me to come back to him. And this cycle just goes on for months, honestly. I would go talk to him and try to work things out. We're married, maybe if we live in separate houses, but we still see each other, everything's going to be okay. We can work it out. And it took 2.5 or 3 years actually before all of that stopped. And I finally started my healing journey and realized who he really was. So the healing didn't by any means didn't start when I moved out. You can't just get out of a toxic relationship. There was so many ups and downs and so many things that happened in the 2 years after I moved out. And yeah, it was probably 3 years after I moved out before my healing actually started.